Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Chapter 51 Upgrading Puzzle X Nen Conception. Night, 2 o'clock. Luo Lin looked at the system panel expressionlessly. In the past, the training intensity was at least 20 points of experience, but now I only got 3 points of experience. Luo Lin's face showed a little lovelessness. Doesn't this mean that it is 6 or 7 times more difficult for him to gain experience? No, of course not. It is 20 times more difficult for him to gain experience. Among the 3 points of experience he gained today, 2 points of experience were obtained after completing a practice. This is the only thing to be thankful for. Although the practice of practice is not as efficient as gaining a little experience in 20 minutes, but now 1 hour of practice can still gain a little experience. This is also the surprise that Luo Lin discovered after he broke through to 2 hours in one breath today to maintain practice. It seems that the main source of experience in the future will come from practicing. Luo Lin sighed slightly. If you practice, Luo Lin thought of the growth rate of his potential thoughts. Each time he practiced, he increased his total thoughts by 1/10. According to this efficiency increase, even if he could only last 2 hours of practice now, in less than 10 days, his potential thoughts would be able to last for more than 10 hours, the degree of practice. At that time, he can gain more than 10 points of experience every day. Even maintaining the state of practicing 24 hours a day, it is not impossible to completely replace entanglement with firmness. If so, the 3,000 experience points needed to upgrade are not much. Luo Linton felt much better. In fact, judging from the benefits brought by his upgrade, no matter how difficult the upgrade is, it may drive countless people crazy. The reason why Luo Lin feels slow is because the system claims to become a god at the 100th level. With this efficiency, the 100th level seems to be far away. After the self-consolation was completed, Luo Lin's mentality also returned to stability. After closing the system panel, Luo Lin began to think about another problem, thinking about his Nen's problem. Nen of the idiosyncratic system. Mizumi's response was to add some more screens similar to the system panel. Could it be that I use Nen to recreate a system? Luo Lin couldn't help being amused at his own thought. Although Nen can be called magical, and even a kind of omnipotent ability to some extent. But recreating a system like this is impossible no matter how you think about it. Of course, if oaths and restrictions are used, maybe a crude version of the system can be created. But there may be some huge flaws in this crude version of the system. For example, you need to pay a lot of money to get something, or the upper limit that the system can reach is not high. And for Luo Lin, making this kind of thing is meaningless at all. Even if he could create a decent and normal system, it wouldn't make much sense to him. After all, adding points to Deep Blue, can it improve the level of life like his system? The production system is difficult, and it doesn't make sense to me, but Biscuit said that Nen's creation first feels very important. Luo Lin pondered slightly. When he saw the Mizumi style, the first impression that flashed in his mind was the system panel. Even if he repeatedly denied that Nen could create a powerful system. But because he himself possesses the 100-level ascension system, Luo Lin believes that in his subconscious, he will still be biased towards the system ability. Why is it just a trait-type ability? Luo Lin felt a little headache. If he is an ability user of another Nen system, even if he subconsciously thinks that the 100-level ascension system is very strong, such troublesome things will not happen. Wait, Nen system. Luo Lin was taken aback for a moment, and thought about it. Is it okay if I create a system only for Nen? Luo Lin couldn't help thinking. The more he thought about it, the more Luo Lin felt that something was wrong. After all, it is impossible to create a system that can become a cheating level for traversers, but it should not be difficult to create a system that only targets Nen. After all, Nen is against Nen, this match. And there is a model for success. Kurapika, the opponent's trait Nen absolute time is the ability to affect the Nen system. After opening this ability, it can exert the power of the other 5 Nen systems to 100%. Of course, Luo Lin doesn't really want to play life-burning tricks, so if you want to know how to do it, you still have to consult a professional. Ask Biscuit tomorrow. Luo Lin pondered, and immediately made a decision. You want to use Nen to create a system to influence the Nen system. Biscuit blinked and looked at Luo Lin in a daze. They are all terms she is familiar with, so why are you so dizzy? Looking at Biscuit's confused face, Luo Lin knew that Biscuit didn't understand. After thinking about it for a while, he understood why Biscuit didn't understand. Although the term system has been around for a long time, it is mostly used to describe the network system and mobile phone system. From what he understands, that kind of plug-in system may not have that kind of concept in this world. After thinking for a while, Luo Lin re-explained, Biscuit, have you ever played that kind of online game that fights monsters and upgrades? I haven't played it, but I know a little bit. Biscuit nodded. Although he looks like a teenage girl who just likes to play games, Biscuit is actually a real ant in his 50s. There is no hobby of playing games. The characters in online games all have a system of fighting monsters, upgrading and adding points, you should know it. Luo Lin said. The system for fighting monsters and upgrading. Oh, that's what you meant by the system. Biscuit suddenly understood. The system, Nen, affects the Nen system. Biscuit tried to understand Luo Lin's thoughts this time, and then suddenly understood. You want to attack the Nen system? Biscuit suddenly said angrily. What a simple matter, why are you talking about such trouble? Luo Lin, what he said is not troublesome at all. Well, he said at the beginning that his purpose is to influence the Nen system. The ability to affect the Nen system. How would you even think about such an ability? Biscuit said with a frown. Is it difficult? Luo Lin was slightly taken aback, wondering. It's not difficult for the trait system, but it's useless. If you want to be useful, the price is too high. Biscuit shook his head and said. It's useless. Luo Lin frowned. How can it be useless? Seeing Luo Lin's disbelieving expression, Biscuit sighed and began to explain to Luo Lin. Chapter 52. Change the Nen system. You want to increase the practice efficiency and upper limit of the non-specialized Nen system. Biscuit looked at Luo Lin seriously and said. Luo Lin nodded. He did mean that. Since you want to influence the Nen system, you should know the structure diagram of Nen's 6 major systems. Biscuit said. Luo Lin nodded. Nen's 6 major system structure diagrams. It is actually a hexagon. The top of the hexagon is the enhancer, the bottom of the enhancer is the left transmuter and the right conjurer. Then the emitter is below the transmuter, the manipulator is below the conjurer, and the bottom line is the traits. Among them, Nen practice their own corresponding system as the most suitable, which is 100% fit. And practice adjacent systems, such as Luo Lin, who is a trait system, and Nen, who practices emitter and manipulator, will only have an adaptation rate of 80%. At the top, the Nen who cultivates transmuter and conjurer will only have 60% of the fitness left, and the enhancer Nen who cultivates the top is only 40% of the fitness. Therefore, it takes a lot of energy to cross the Nen system to cultivate Nen, and the power of Nen cultivated will be far inferior to those cultivated by Nen of this system. Now that you know the 6 major systems of Nen, you should be able to understand that to a certain extent, everyone's natural system is his aptitude. Changing the Nen system is changing a person's aptitude. Biscuit looked at Luo Lin seriously and asked, then do you think a person's natural aptitude can be changed? Luo Lin thought for a while, then said directly, I think it is possible. Others don't say that Luo Lin didn't think he was a genius before he was promoted. Biscuit did not affirm or deny Luo Lin's answer, but continued to ask, then what price do you think it takes to change a person's natural aptitude? What price do you pay? Luo Lin frowned. Still taking him as an example, the price he pays for changing his aptitude is experience, but the ability to upgrade through experience depends on his system. And the system, even if you think about Luo Lin with your feet, you know how outrageously good his system is. And if he is excluded, can other people change their natural aptitude? The answer is still yes. Kurapika, his trait Nen is a typical example of changing his natural aptitude, and the price he paid, was his life. Life. Luo Lin was a little uncertain. That's right. Biscuit snapped his fingers, nodded and said, there are actually many prices you can pay to change your natural aptitude, but life is the price that everyone has and is the easiest to pay. That's the cost of changing the Nen system. And then we're going to talk about the gain of changing the Nen system. Biscuit changed the subject and continued. Even if you are willing to pay the price of your life to increase all Nen systems to 100%, the 6 major systems. Even if you don't count the traits that cannot be cultivated, there are 5 major systems: strengthening, changing, releasing, materializing, and manipulating. Have you come here through cultivation? Biscuit looked at Luo Lin seriously and said, Nen's practice, even the practice of any system, requires a lot of energy to achieve results. And with the same amount of energy, if you want to practice 5 systems at the same time, then each system can invest only 1/5 of the system. In this case, even if you were originally a genius and divided your energy into 5 parts, you will only end up as a mediocre common person in all aspects. Instead, you might as well concentrate on what you are best at. Hearing what Biscuit said, Luo Lin nodded in agreement. This he does not deny. Even if it is a real genius and evildoer, after dividing his energy into 5 parts, each part can still produce results. But if you concentrate your energy on a certain part, the results you get will definitely be higher than the upper limit of each of the 5 results. Biscuit looked at Luo Lin and said seriously, so, changing Nen's system is a typical high-input, low-return capability. If it's not very necessary, I don't recommend you to develop capabilities in this direction. After listening to Biscuit's words, Luo Lin did not answer immediately, but kept thinking in his mind. To be honest, although he thought of developing the ability to affect the Nen system, in fact, Luo Lin really didn't have such an ability. From the very beginning, he was just because he was a special type ability user, and the Mizumi-style phenomenon was a bit like a system panel. Combining the two, he thought of this ability once more. But after listening to Biscuit's explanation, Luo Lin is now seriously thinking about what ability he wants. Ability. To be honest, Luo Lin doesn't have much desire for Nen's Nirvana. Although he is a trait-type ability user, because of the upgrade system, he is actually more similar to the Enhancer's Nen user. That is to say, without any Nirvana, Nen can bully the vast majority of people in this world just by relying on his body and foundation. Therefore, Luo Lin didn't have much desire for the lethality of Nirvana. And the functional Nen. What Luo Lin wants most now is the ability to gain experience faster and more. But obviously, it is definitely useless to use Nen to affect the system, but Nen cannot affect the system, but can affect himself. Just like increasing the load to increase the efficiency of gaining experience, he can use the same principle to increase the efficiency of gaining experience. But here comes the problem again. If Luo Lin is Enhancer, Conjurer, Manipulator, or even Transmuter, Emitter, Luo Lin can think of many abilities to increase the efficiency of experience acquisition, but he is a special ability user. Yes, most of the trait-based abilities are very special, and many of them are even magical rule-based abilities. But no matter what the trait ability is, Luo Lin doesn't think it can directly affect his system and directly allow him to gain experience. Therefore, instead of obsessing over the trait-based ability, it is better to turn his own trait-based ability into an opportunity to practice Nen in other systems, as he thought. For some unknown reason, although Luo Lin is an ability user of the trait system, his ability did not take shape immediately. So, this gives Luo Lin the chance. Luo Lin Yi looked at Biscuit seriously and said, Biscuit, I've decided. Chapter 53. Biscuit, I've decided, I still want to develop this type of ability. Luo Lin looked at Biscuit seriously and said. Hearing what Luo Lin said, Biscuit frowned slightly, but didn't say anything else. Nen development has always been a very personal thing. Since the disciple has made a decision after careful consideration, of course the teacher will not stop it, but will try his best to help. Of course, avoid the other side from making truly inevitable mistakes. Since you've made up your mind, it means you've already thought it over. Biscuit also looked serious. But if the Nen you conceived is completely impossible to realize, as long as you think that Biscuit has no possibility of realization, then I will develop Nen in a different direction. Luo Lin said straightforwardly. He is not a person who does not turn back if he hits the south wall, and he still has a certain degree of confidence in his ability to conceive. Okay, Biscuit nodded. Then tell me about the Nen you conceived. Nen is definitely the most core ability of a Nen person, and the ability that cannot be disclosed to others. However, as his teacher, Biscuit even now wants to give advice to his Nen, so naturally Luo Lin will not hide his thoughts. Biscuit, I think so. The first is the cost of changing qualifications. If what I want to do is not to increase qualifications out of thin air, but to transfer qualifications, I shouldn't have to pay a huge price. Luo Lin said. Transfer qualification? You mean? Biscuit was taken aback for a moment, then reacted, his eyes lit up slightly and said, transfer the qualification of one NEN system to another system. That's right. Luo Lin nodded. Although it sounds unbelievable, it's really not impossible for trait-type abilities. Biscuit said thoughtfully. Exchanging aptitude for aptitude, as long as in your concept, the two are exchanged equally, then you don't even need to pay an extra price. The worst result is that there will be some loss during the conversion. Hearing what Biscuit said, Luo Lin also showed a smile and continued, then there is the harvest. Biscuit, do you think NEN's qualifications can exceed 100%? More than 100%. Luo Lin, you mean? Biscuit was stunned for a moment, looking at Luo Lin in front of her, she instantly understood what her disciple was thinking. It's kind of crazy, but when you think about it, it's not impossible. Qualification for qualification, equivalent exchange. If the first two are achieved, then it is a matter of course that the superposition of aptitude exceeds 100%. NEN is an ability system that goes against your will. As long as you think you can do one thing, and the price you pay is relatively equal, then NEN can really do it. Even if this kind of thing seems outrageous to others, this is NEN. But if this kind of thing is really achieved, then the person who can do this kind of thing may subconsciously never regard the so-called upper limit as his own upper limit. So what kind of self is this person? So, Biscuit lowered his head and thought for a long time, then looked up at Luo Lin and said seriously, this kind of thing is theoretically possible, but it may require very strong beliefs, and even harsh vows and restrictions. Theoretically, as long as it can be done. Luo Linton smiled. As a NEN system, it's fine if it can't affect him, but if you can't even add or subtract points to NEN, then this trait is an ability, whether it is present or not, is not so important. Looking at Luo Lin's smile, Biscuit suddenly felt as if he understood why his disciple was an ability user of the trait department. Of course, Biscuit has heard about the relationship between NEN and personality, which is widely circulated among NEN lovers. Among them, the character of the trait-type ability person is individualism. And Biscuit and Luo Lin have been in touch these days, and they have never felt that there is any individualism in their disciples. Although he is not so innocent, he looks like he has no bad intentions, and his personality is a bit carefree. Before the test, Biscuit thought that his disciple was either a transmuter or an enhancer. But now, it's not a special ability user. Afterwards, Biscuit and Luo Lin discussed for a long time the details of NEN's construction, as well as the changes that may be encountered when constructing abilities, and how to deal with them. After discussing for a whole morning, the two finally finalized the prototype of Luo Lin NEN. Then Luo Lin began to really determine his NEN. Looking at Luo Lin, who was seriously constructing the NEN in the tent, Biscuit seemed to be witnessing the birth of a monster. No, that kid was originally a super monster. Biscuit suddenly spat out, thinking of Luo Lin's terrifying aptitude that he had seen in the past 10 days. This boy's NEN structure this time, I'm afraid it will be much smoother than expected. Biscuit suddenly had this premonition in his heart for no reason. Chapter 54. In the tent, Luo Lin sat cross-legged, thinking about the construction method of NEN that Biscuit told him before. Different from ability users of other systems, trait-type abilities cannot be cultivated, so trait-type abilities are usually attached to the display of emitter or manipulator abilities and form naturally. Close hollow corner bracket. So, do I need to realize a system panel as a carrier first? Although I haven't practiced manipulator yet, it shouldn't be troublesome just to realize a simple system panel as a carrier. Thinking to himself, Luo Lin called out his own system panel. Since it is a real system panel, it is natural to have a real system panel as a comparison. Looking at the system panel in front of him that only he could see, Luo Lin was filled with thoughts, concentrated, and began to imagine that there was another system panel in front of him. Maybe it's because Luo Lin's mental power is strong, or maybe it's really easy to realize a panel without substance. In less than 10 minutes, a blank panel condensed by Nian Qi appeared in front of Luo Lin. And the moment this blank system panel appeared, a very mysterious feeling came to Luo Lin's heart. The next moment, patterns and words appeared on the blank panel. That's a diagram of Nen's hexagonal system structure. However, unlike the traditional Nen structure diagram, the top of the structure diagram on this panel is the trait system Nen. Then there are manipulator and emitter, conjurer and transmuter on the left and right sides, and enhancer at the bottom. And below the words of each department, there are percentage numbers. They are 100% of traits, 80% of manipulator and emitter, 60% of conjurer and transmuter, and finally 40% below enhancer. This is formed. Luo Lin looked at the panel in front of him in a daze. It took Luo Lin a while to react. Naturally shaped, what a natural shaped. Luo Lin was speechless, and finally understood what Biscuit told him before: just think of the rules, and wait for the reason why Nen formed naturally. Luo Lin could feel that he could now add rules and conditions to the panel in front of him. The method of adding rules and conditions is not special, just like oaths and constraints only need to swear in the heart and swear to abide by. Adding rules and conditions to trait abilities only needs to be decided in the heart to add. The first is the increase and transfer of Nen's qualifications. Luo Lin kept thinking. The changes on the panel in front of him began to change, with plus and minus signs appearing on the left and right of the corresponding qualification percentage under each Nen category. Easier than expected, Luo Lin thought to himself as he watched the panel change. He just formulated the rules that the qualifications of the Nen system can be increased and transferred, and the conditions have not yet been formulated, and it has already taken shape. This means that his qualifications can be unconditionally increased and transferred without any preconditions. Try it first. With a slight thought in his mind, Luo Lin began to try to adjust the talent ratio on the panel. In the next moment, the original 40% below the enhancer became 10%, and there were 30% more words in the middle of the hexagonal system diagram. Hey, the minimum can only be adjusted to 10%, and there is no way to continue to lower it. Is it because the Nen must have the enhancer system? Luo Lin looked at the lowered enhancer system and couldn't guess in his mind. Then he tried to adjust several other systems, but all of them couldn't move at 10%. The only exception is the trait Nen. Luo Lin did not reduce him. It's not that it can't be adjusted, but Luo Lin's intuition tells him that once the Nen of the trait system is reduced, it will become 0%. Then his current Nen will simply disappear. And he will also become a unique 10% of the 5 major systems and 0% of the traits. So, the only talent that I can freely mobilize is 260%. Luo Lin looked at the word 260% in the middle of Nen's hexagonal structure diagram. It's enough, Luo Lin thought to himself, try to increase your talent. Subsequently, Luo Lin tried to increase Nen's qualifications again. Subsequently, the 260% in the center of the Nen structure map has become 170%, while the bottom of the enhancer has changed from 10% to 100%. Sure enough, the upper limit is only 100%. Luo Lin was not surprised. When Nen took shape, he could feel the ceiling. Now let's start adding the rules that make the aptitude exceed 100%. Luo Lin looked a little serious, and then began to add the rules in his heart according to the rules discussed with Biscuit before. However, after Luo Lin just added the first condition, Luo Lin was stunned again. It's done, although no one told him directly, but the sixth sense in his heart told Luo Lin that the rules he added to make the aptitude break through 100% had taken effect. And there is only one condition. Any qualification limit cannot exceed the trait department. In other words, if Luo Lin wants to adjust any Nen system by more than 100%, he must first adjust the ability of the trait system to more than 100%. With such a simple condition, the rule of making the aptitude break through 100% has been completed. Originally, he and Biscuit discussed one by one to try to make the qualifications break through the upper limit while not affecting himself too much, and the conditions were completely useless. So, it's not a difficult thing to make the aptitude break through 100%. Luo Lin couldn't help but think. Wait, my Nen is done already. Luo Lin looked at the system panel that appeared in front of him, and an inexplicable strangeness flashed across his face. So, what the hell were he and Biscuit discussing? Chapter 55. Easy to complete the construction of the trait memory ability, and there is only one condition. Even Bai Siji had a premonition that Luo Lin could easily complete the reading ability, but he never thought that Luo Lin could complete it so easily. This is the transfer of reading ability and aptitude, and the ability of reading ability and aptitude to break through 100%, the result is only one condition. What's the difference between this and no condition? I originally thought that your kid's trait memory ability should be at the talent level, but now it seems that you are born with an extremely high level. Bai Siji looked at Luo Lin with a complicated expression and said. Luo Lin, talent level, very first class. What's the meaning? If you have any questions, Luo Lin asked directly, Bisji, what do you mean by the talent level and extreme level? Does it have something to do with my simple ability to cultivate thoughts? You don't know the attribute circle? Bai Siji asked rhetorically. Attribute, circle. Luo Lin blinked, looking very dazed. Bisji suddenly laughed and said, it seems that you don't understand all the knowledge of reading ability. The attribute circle refers to the cultivation speed of the mind ability user in the mind ability system to which he belongs. Bai Siji began to explain. From high to low, there are 4 levels: extreme, talented, excellent, and excellent. The higher the level of cultivation in a mind ability system. There's such a thing as telekinetic ability. Luo Lin couldn't help being a little surprised. Originally, he thought that besides the details, his general understanding of the ability to read was comprehensive enough. I just don't know if it's because the world has changed after it became real, or because I didn't have time to make up the latest content revealed in the episode. Luo Lin thought to himself. Of course, being at that level does not mean the strength of the strength, but just the level of cultivation of the individual's mind ability system. It's like you should be at the top of the trait system in the attribute circle of the trait system, but it doesn't mean that your strength is stronger than other levels of ability users. Bai Siji added suddenly. Then what's the use of this thing? Luo Lin was stunned, and subconsciously complained. He thought it was the strength level of the ability reader. For example, you can use a little energy to exert a little power, and Shu can use a little energy to exert 2 powers. Well, let you know what level you are in your own system, and have a goal to work hard for. Bisji said uncertainly. It's just a name for the progress of cultivation. Luo Lin complained. Of course it's more than that. Bai Siji shook his head and said. It's impossible to compare strength with other people because there are too many factors that affect combat power, such as body, spirit, will, environment, and whether the ability of mind is suitable for combat, etc. But if it's me, of course the higher the level of cultivation, the stronger the strength. For example, if your trait ability is not extreme, and you are talented or lower level excellent and excellent, it should be much more difficult for you to complete the reading ability. Bai Siji said. I seem to understand a little bit. Luo Lin thoughtfully. Forget about being stupid. Bai Siji shook his head directly and said, forget it, you don't need to understand these anyway, but, Luo Lin, I hope you are mentally prepared. What psychological preparation? Luo Lin was taken aback. Of course it's the mental preparation for health-style training. Bai Siji suddenly grinned grimly. You should have awakened when you conceived this thought ability. From today onwards, every thought ability system must undergo the awakening of crazy practice. Luo Lin froze for a moment and then laughed. I can't ask for more. Wait, has the difficulty of gaining my practice experience increased dozens of times? So what's the point of my training? Luo Lin, can I refuse training? Jojo serious face.jpg. It's too late. Give me enlightenment, night. Isn't it a bit inappropriate to do this? Luo Lin looked at the assorted colorful chicken in his hand and hesitated for a while. Although this is a protected animal in a neighboring country, they eat up all the chickens in this forest every few days. Moreover, this is not in line with the status of a hunter. He didn't care, but Bai Siji ate so happily. Not suitable. Bisji laughed immediately. Luo Lin, do you know why this chicken is a protected animal in the country next door? Pretty little. Luo Lin thought for a while and said. No. Bai Siji shook his hand and said, because it's delicious. This kind of chicken is the exclusive food of the royal family of that country, so it is a protected animal. The corner of Luo Lin's mouth twitched. Looking at the chicken in his hand, he ate it with big mouthfuls. Remember to do 1,000 push-ups on one side while eating, and then go back to sleep. Bai Siji said after eating, turned and left. Luo Lin froze for a moment, thinking of the finger that Bai Siji stretched out just now. Damn, careless. The completion of the mind ability did not make Luo Lin's training easier, and it even became more difficult because of the addition of 5 mind ability systems. The only thing that makes Luo Lin happy is that all the training uses the ability to read. Even if he didn't keep practicing, the energy consumed naturally throughout the day still slightly increased Luo Lin's efficiency in gaining experience. Coupled with the fact that Luo Lin keeps practicing for longer and longer every day, Luo Lin's experience accumulation speed is slightly faster. In the blink of an eye, another half-month has passed. Luo Lin's 30th day of formal training under Bai Siji. Luo Lin and Bai Siji fought fiercely, and Luo Lin was not at a disadvantage at all. The two sides fought back and forth. Of course, both sides didn't make any real moves, and it was still just a competition of martial arts. After 30 days of practice, Luo Lin's fighting skills have almost completely transformed. If there are levels for combat ability, he must have been upgraded by at least 2 levels. Boom! After a fierce collision of fists and palms, both of them took 3 steps back and looked at each other warily. Then the two laughed in unison. "Bisji, what's the matter? I didn't get hit by you once in this fight," Luo Lin said proudly. "Well, indeed, your combat level has graduated." Bai Siji did not refute, but said with a chuckle, "Hey, Bai, graduation." Luo Lin's smile froze, and he froze. "That's right," Bai Siji said with a serious expression, looking at Luo Lin solemnly. "As a secret hunter examiner, I announce that Hunter Luo Lin has passed the secret test. From today, you are a real professional hunter." Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Chapter 56. Hello. Netero worked hard and picked up the phone casually. "Smelly old man, my task is completed." Biscuit's unceremonious voice came from the phone. "Oh, ho ho, has that kid graduated yet?" Netero suddenly stopped what he was doing and laughed. Perfect graduation," Biscuit hummed and said. "Next year at the latest, that kid will let your old man know it's a surprise." Even if it's just the voice, Netero can hear the confidence in Biscuit's voice. "Can it grow up next year?" There was a look of surprise in Netero's eyes. "Although I am looking forward to it in my heart, 1 year, is it a little bit sooner?" "Old man, don't you think that a year is going too fast?" Biscuit suddenly changed the subject. "It's a little bit." Netero didn't hide it, and said directly with a smile. "HMPH, 1 year is just right. If you wait another year, I'm afraid you won't be able to fight back, old man, and there will be no good show," Biscuit said proudly. "Anyway, old man, just wait." After Biscuit finished speaking, he hung up the phone directly. Looking at the hung-up phone, Netero looked a little weird. It's not enough to be able to fight him in a year, and in another year, his old man won't even have the qualifications to fight the opponent. Isn't this a little outrageous? But Netero knows Biscuit well enough, a guy who can't lie. Not lie about things like this. Netero fell silent for a moment. "Oh ho ho, the world is really big." Netero laughed. To be honest, even Netero couldn't help hesitating just now. Letting that creepy kid grow up. Really. However, this idea was fleeting, and it was directly killed by Netero. He stroked his beard, and under his seemingly calm smile, there was a gradually rising fighting spirit. He seems to have become decades younger out of thin air, returning to the period when his fighting spirit was the most high-spirited. "In that case, I can't wait any longer, old man." Biscuit. Luo Lin came back from the forest happily grabbing 2 pheasants. Since Biscuit said the reason why this chicken became a protected animal, Luo Lin no longer feels guilty about eating protected animals from neighboring countries. He even took turns with Biscuit to find a reason to catch 2 Daltons Dayaji. 2 people each go there every 3 to 5 times, and basically can eat once every 2 or 3 days. I have to say that it is indeed a pheasant that can become a protected animal by virtue of its deliciousness. The 2 of them never tire of eating it. Biscuit. After shouting a few times and getting no response, Luo Lin stared at the quiet camp and froze for a moment. With a thought in Luo Lin's mind, the energy of the thought expanded rapidly in an instant, completely enveloping the camp Fang Yuan 100 meters away in a blink of an eye. Sure enough. The camp is empty. Gone. Luo Lin was stunned. Although when Biscuit announced his graduation, he knew that it was time for the 2 to separate, but it never occurred to him that Biscuit would leave without saying goodbye. That old woman, since I told you to tell me when I graduated, it means that the secret is no longer important to me. Why do you leave without saying goodbye? Luo Lin complained a few times, but he couldn't help but feel a pang in his heart warmth. Luo Lin looked at the two pheasants in his hands, let them go, and watched them return to the forest. Now that Biscuit was gone, he had nothing to celebrate by himself. HMPH, next time we meet, if you don't treat me to a good meal, this matter will never end. Luo Lin snorted and walked out of the forest. Half an hour later, Luo Lin regretted it. He shouldn't have let go of those 2 chickens. 5 million monks. Although Luo Lin didn't know why the chickens that could be caught casually in the wild forest were so valuable, but 1 chicken was worth 5 million quats. Luo Lin looked at his pocket, which was cleaner than his face now. After living and practicing in the wild for a month, he almost forgot that the money he obtained from those hunter candidates had already been spent. Next, I have to make some money first. As for the way to make money, Luo Lin couldn't help feeling a little toothache. Well, he was shamefully moved. Walking out of a certain high-end restaurant, Luo Lin found an extra box in his hand. Luo Lin never imagined that his first job after becoming an official hunter would actually be hunting. Let's find a way to create an identity first, let's open a bank account first. Luo Linton felt a headache when he didn't have a bank account, and it was troublesome to collect money. So, where is he going to get a fake identity? As a good young man who has been abiding by the law for more than 20 years, Luo Lin only feels that finding a place to get a fake certificate is more troublesome than fighting Biscuit again. Even if Luo Lin has the URL of Hunter's dedicated website that claims to be able to buy all information, but, as a black account without a bank account, he can't go there to buy information. Thanks for the Hunter license. Luo Lin walked out of the bank, feeling brighter. Originally, he was just trying it out, but he didn't expect the Hunter license to be so easy to use. Even without showing his identity, he could open a temporary bank account. After depositing the money in the bank, Luo Lin went directly to an internet cafe and logged on to the Hunter dedicated website, Hunter Bar. There is actually a shop that handles false certificates directly. No, it's a shop that handles real certificates. Luo Linton was pleasantly surprised. Although a status of 5 million monks is a bit expensive, but a genuine status that can withstand any public investigation is also worth it. After all, if you think about it from another angle, isn't this just a chicken coin? After setting the delivery address of the ID card worth a chicken coin, Luo Lin directly exited the Hunter Bar. As if returning from the virtual world, Luo Lin sighed directly. All the information is good information, but at that price, how come people who just read it have a toothache? Luo Lin took out his mobile phone, found the app for buying airship tickets, and directly ordered an airship ticket to the city where the Sky Arena is located. Originally, Luo Lin didn't actually plan to go to the Sky Arena to join in the excitement. But Luo Lin found that to live well in this world, strength alone is not enough, he still needs to make some money. And based on Luo Lin's understanding of the world, the only place where he can make money quickly and safely is the Sky Arena. 10 days slow, 6 or 7 days fast, you can earn 400 million monks, and even a little shameless, you can swipe twice and earn 800 million monks. After earning this sum, as long as there are no big expenses in a short period of time, Luo Lin doesn't have to worry about making money anymore. Chapter 57. Just when Luo Lin opened a temporary account with a Hunter license to buy airship tickets. In a hotel somewhere in this city. Yes, boss. A young man sitting in front of the computer shouted excitedly, someone bought an airship ticket to the Sky Arena with a Hunter's license. Behind the young man, a muscular man came over, looked at the information on the screen and suddenly laughed. It took more than a month to show up. As a novice hunter, this patience is already very good, but this kid is still careless after all. I'm afraid he didn't expect that someone could wait here for more than a month. As hunters, our licensed hunters are more patient. Haha. The muscular man who called himself a licensed hunter laughed. The so-called licensed hunters are a group of people who aim at the hunter licenses of novice hunters. After the annual hunter test is over, they wait for the novice hunters to show their flaws and seize the opportunity to seize the hunter license. But in fact, this is just a group of hyenas who have no ability to pass the hunter test, report to the group for warmth, and rob them by their numbers. At this moment, the young man was working on the computer with both hands. Boss, the airship ticket is at 6 o'clock this afternoon, which means that he may be on his way to the airport now. What should we do next? Should we intercept or kill him? The way to the airport is not suitable for interception. If we are surrounded by the police, even we will not be able to escape. The muscular man shook his head and said, Shower, buy the same batch of airship tickets for all of us. We will start on the airship, and then prepare the hang glider and parachute. When the time comes, we will retreat from the sky. No one can catch us. The muscular man grinned. He seems to have thought of the successful life of the plan and the happy life after selling the hunter's license to get a lot of wealth. Airport. Luo Lin took the ticket from the counter and got on the airship directly. It takes 3 days to get to the Sky Arena from here. The new identity bought at the Hunter's Bar should have been delivered by then, and it's time to sign up for the Sky Arena. Luo Lin made up his next action plan, casually glanced at the crowd around him, and walked directly to the room. Arriving in front of the airship's room, Luo Lin casually glanced at the man sitting in the corridor of the airship who seemed to be reading a newspaper, and closed the door directly. It's the 7th, why is someone following me? Luo Lin closed the door a little strangely. When he was in the airport hall before, he noticed that there seemed to be people around him staring at him. Moreover, there were people watching on the airship and in front of his room door in advance. Although the arrangement is good, the people who follow me every time arrive before me, but the technology is too bad, and they are all common people. Luo Lin pondered slightly. Just because of this, Luo Lin can directly rule out that it was arranged by Nitro, and it may not even have anything to do with the news from Nitro. Luo Lin thought about the things in him that were worthy of being coveted. Hunter license. This is the only valuable thing Luo Lin can think of. But, is there really a gang with a novice hunter's license? Luo Lin was a little surprised. To be honest, he originally thought that the 1/5 license loss rate of novice hunters within a year was all set up by the Hunter Association itself. After all, there is a secret test after the Hunter test. If the secret test fails, the Hunter license will probably be revoked. But now it seems, he guessed wrong. Thinking of this, Luo Lin also shook his head, not thinking about anything. As for the group of people outside, not to mention him now, even a month ago before Xinyan, that group of people would not have caused any disturbances. Just think of it as a little fun on the road. Luo Lin silently settled the ending for that group of people. Having said that, Luo Lin did not choose to go out. A little fun wasn't worth messing with his plans. After all, his next training plan is quite important to him. Give it a try. In 3 days, I don't know if I can complete the practice I envisioned. Luo Lin took a deep breath and practiced according to the plan. Late at night, Luo Lin is still practicing practice. A month of practice. Although Luo Lin's current practice has not reached the point of sustaining 10 hours, it has been nearly 9 hours. According to the growth rate of his potential energy, it is only a matter of 1 or 2 practice sessions. So from afternoon to now, even Luo Lin didn't have enough time to practice once. However, Luo Lin didn't practice either. It's not about guarding against the group of common people who might attack him, but his 3-day training plan is not a simple practice. Luo Lin let out a deep breath, wiped the sweat off his forehead, and showed a look of exhaustion on his face. Sure enough, it's very difficult to use yin for a long time in a firm state. Luo Lin picked up the water next to him and took a sip, and heaved a sigh of relief. That's right, to maintain the use of concealment for a long time in a strong state, this is the small goal Luo Lin set for himself in the past 3 days. As for why this kind of practice is carried out, of course, it was to make Lian's practice his normal practice. Now seeing that his practice will soon last 10 hours or even longer, Luo Lin doesn't want to waste most of his time every day on practice. So, Luo Lin thought of a fantasy he had long ago. The normalization of practice. That is to say, replacing entanglement with practice has become a normalized state. At that time, Luo Lin was equivalent to cultivating 24 hours a day without delaying his own affairs. Of course, there are still many problems to be solved with this idea. For example, doing other things in the state of training is equivalent to being distracted in a sense, but this is not a big problem. It's not hard to do after a little getting used to it. Then there is the problem of being too conspicuous in the training state. For common people, it doesn't make any difference whether Luo Lin is practicing or not, but in the eyes of those who have the ability to read, it will definitely be very strange if Luo Lin is still practicing. That's why Luo Lin came up with the idea of concealing his surging thoughts in the state of practice and pretending to be entangled. Of course, if possible, Luo Lin would like to develop an ability similar to the Yin Seal in the Naruto world, and store this part of the energy so as not to waste it. But developing this kind of ability is not something that happens overnight, so for a short time, Luo Lin still intends to cover it up. But from the current point of view, this difficulty is not too small. Chapter 58. During the interval between practice, Luo Lin, who was resting, suddenly frowned and looked around. Although the movement was very slight, he did hear strange sounds coming from around him. Luo Lin's thought moved slightly, and the thought energy entwined around his body expanded rapidly, surpassing the room in an instant, enveloping several surrounding rooms. This is... Luo Lin's face changed slightly. Under his round detection, everything in the surrounding room was clearly perceived by him. There are 3 rooms on the left, right, and back, and each room has 3 people, and there are some hard-to-detect holes in some corners of his room. At this time, the people in those rooms were holding some bottles and pouring colorless and odorless gas into his room through these small holes. Quite capable. Luo Lin frowned. He didn't care about the methods used by those people. Although he didn't know what kind of gas it was, the inflow speed was not fast, and there was no problem in a short time. But he was surprised by the hole in his room. Was it emptied before I came? If it is impossible for him not to find out about digging holes in the wall after he comes, it can only be done before he comes to this house. You've been eyeing my hunter license. That's why I used the hunter license to buy an airship ticket, so you can find my room in advance. There's a good computer expert in this group of people. But none of the 9 people in the room around Luo Lin looked like a computer expert, and he didn't even see a computer. That's why these minds are dirty. Luo Lin was distressed. After all, in this way, he can't catch them all, although a group of common people won't cause any big trouble. The valve must not be opened too much, even if it is slow, it must not make a sound. In the next room, a muscular man ordered in a low voice. But boss, do we really need to use carbon monoxide? This thing can kill people. A younger brother looked hesitant. Then you go. You don't get the money from selling hunter's license. The muscular man glanced at the man and said directly. Boss, I'm joking, hee hee. The man immediately put away his hesitant face, and said with a sneer. HMPH. The muscular man snorted coldly, and said nothing more. As for the temperament of his little brother, he has long been clear, hesitating to kill or not. That's still not enough money. So, it's carbon monoxide. It's colorless, tasteless, and odorless. The source is simple. If the concentration is sufficient, the effect will be quick enough. It's indeed a very convenient gas. That's right, the strong man replied proudly. Then, the strong man turned around suddenly, and the big knife in his hand slashed at the source of the sound behind him. Luo Lin held the blade of the machete with one hand, and looked at the strong man in front of him in amazement. He pretended not to react when he heard the sudden sound, replied proudly, and then swung the knife without saying a word, which was decisive and ruthless enough. Pity. The strength is a little bit worse. Hard stubble. The strong man's expression changed instantly. Of course he recognized Luo Lin. As a hunter, if you can't even recognize your prey, that's a big joke. Only, now who is the prey and who is the hunter is not sure. The strong man's pupils shrank suddenly. Catching the knife he swung with all his strength with his bare hands. This performance instantly made the strong man understand that he was definitely not a match for the novice hunter in front of him who was regarded as his prey. The strong man let go of the knife in his hand, then pulled out a pistol from his back waist, pointed it directly at the gas cylinder under his feet and shouted. Stand back, or I'll shoot you. He recognized the gap in strength in an instant, and did not blindly believe in the firearm in his hand, and then accurately grasped the only carbon monoxide cylinder that might become a threat. This operation directly looked at the little brother next to him. Or why is he the boss? Not to mention the 2 little brothers next to him, even Luo Lin couldn't help clapping his hands and praising him. At first glance, this operation is not a temporary idea, but a long-planned plan. Apparently, this strong man had already thought about how to save his life when he encountered an irresistible monster. Unfortunately, the gap is too big. Although I don't know how powerful the carbon monoxide explosion in the gas cylinder is, Luo Lin doesn't want to face the bomb. So, the moment the boss drew his gun and pointed at the gas cylinder under his feet, Luo Lin's figure appeared directly beside the strong man, and he shook his right hand suddenly. He directly squeezed the muzzle of the pistol in the strong man's hand into a ball, and at the same time a knife in his left hand landed on the back of the strong man's neck. Looking at the three people who fell silently at the same time, Luo Lin dodged to the other two rooms, which didn't take 5 seconds. All 9 people in the 3 rooms were resolved. The preparations are really complete. Luo Lin looked at the hang glider and parachute prepared by the other party. Obviously, the other party was going to jump off the ship and escape directly after completing the goal. Only, this thing can be transported to an airship. This kind of energy shouldn't be limited to this level. Luo Lin frowned. 2 bottles in each room, a total of 6 large bottles of carbon monoxide. If this kind of thing can be transported on an airship by random people, then the airship companies in this world should not do it. I don't know why. Have you been watched? It's really troublesome. Luo Lin scratched his head. He obviously didn't expect that he was just looking for fun, but he found that he seemed to be being targeted by someone. Luo Lin thought for a while. Deal with this group of people first. Walk to the side of the airship. Luo Lin opened a pack of parachutes, hung it on the side, put 6 bottles of carbon monoxide, 9 unconscious people and miscellaneous things into it, tied them into a ball and directly dropped it. Luo Lin clapped his hands. Leave no trace, perfect. But, although he didn't know who he was, but the one thing worth remembering about him, the hunter license, is clearly out of the question. Besides, being targeted, even doing this kind of testing, obviously there is no other reason than that old man Netero doesn't know what's wrong. It seems that there is another debt to settle with that old man. Luo Lin hummed a little song and went back to his room. It's really clean and neat. In the same hotel room as the city where the airship took off, the young man sat in front of the computer and watched the disappearing image with a sigh. Then he took out his mobile phone and made a call. When the call was connected, the young man said directly, "It failed. That person's strength is very good. Really, you didn't do it yourself, but you used those useless trash to test it." On the other end of the phone, a voice that sounded sunny and cheerful came, but what he said didn't have the slightest meaning of sunshine. "The money you gave is not enough to make me work hard." The young man curled his lips and said, "But no matter how much money I give you, it's not enough to make you work hard." The voice on the other end of the phone said with a smile, "Of course, my life is priceless." The young man snorted coldly. "You can find someone else to do this job. I can't do it." "Okay, I will call you within 48 hours for the final payment." The person on the phone was not angry at all, but said with a warm smile. The young man hung up the phone, curled his lips and said in disdain, "What an annoying smirk. Although I don't know why you are being targeted by this kind of person, boy, you are in bad luck." The young man looked at the avatar of Luo Lin on his computer and said casually, then closed his computer, turned and left. Chapter 59. It's not giving up, but can't do it. On the other end of the phone, Pariston looked at the hanging phone in his hand with a smile on his face. As expected, he is the person that President Netero likes. He can make that guy say that he can't do it. Looks like it's a long-term plan. Pariston had a bright smile on his face, and he couldn't see any plans in his heart at all. On the other side, Luo Lin had no idea what kind of innocent disaster he had suffered. Palestine, the vice president of the Hunter Association, whom Netero regards as the most unsuitable opponent to keep by his side for fun. It's not that he found something by staring at Luo Lin. After all, as long as you don't directly see the surveillance footage of Luo Lin suddenly appearing in the Hunter Association elevator like Netero did. Then I got in touch with Luo Lin personally, and discovered all kinds of flaws exposed in Luo Lin, coupled with my understanding of this world and other worlds. Otherwise, no one would have made Netero's crazy guesses based on the data alone. We'll keep an eye on Luo Lin. It's just that Pariston made random moves for the Netero game. Certainly, in the end, it is not certain whether the chess piece is a chess piece or not, and whether the chess player is the chess player. It's here. Luo Lin looked at the gradually descending airship and the sky arena in the distance, and moved his hands and feet a little. Feeling the solid and thick but seemingly thin layer of Nian Qi on the body surface, Luo Lin smiled slightly triumphantly. The 3-day goal he set for himself was completed in just 2 days. As long as he doesn't run out of mind energy now, he can use yin at the same time in the state of Jian. Certainly, Luo Lin wouldn't let his energy run out. Every time when the mind energy is consumed by almost half, he will stop this kind of practice and turn back into a coil to recover his physical strength. In this way, although the effect of practice is not as good as that of practice completed in one breath, the efficiency is not bad. The main reason is that this does not affect his experience gain at all. Now this cycle goes on and on. Even if you don't do extra training in practice, Luo Lin can get 10 points of experience in a day. Stepping off the airship, Luo Lin looked at the sky arena in the distance. Luo Lin was not in a hurry to go there. Instead, he started to wander around the airport hall, and soon, he found a structural diagram of the airport. Then he went straight to the waiting room in Area C of the airport, where he found his chicken in a locker. Oh no, it was his ID card. This incident also made Luo Lin see clearly that although the privilege of the hunter license is very convenient, it is quite troublesome to use casually. Although the identity obtained from the hunter bar cannot be kept secret, at least it will not be stared at by a group of people like the hunter license. The service of this store is not bad. Luo Lin roughly scanned all the information on the ID card. It should be said that it is worthy of the identity that was obtained by spending 5 million monks. The details of the identity certificate are the same as the real ones, including school, life, medical care and even consumption records from childhood to adulthood. There are even matching bank accounts, mobile phone numbers and so on. It can be said that, except for the lack of real valuable items or money, in the information materials, this identity certificate has all the things that should be there. But Luo Lin didn't care about those things. All he needs is a reasonable and legal identity, and it doesn't matter to him whether the information is available or not. After all, if he can find out his identity, he will not be deceived by this false identity, and the kind of person who will be deceived is completely worthless to him. Finding a bank in this city, Luo Lin used this ID card to open a bank account again, and transferred the money in the previous temporary account, and then cancelled the temporary account. As for the account and mobile phone number sent along with the ID card, Luo Lin didn't even look at it. This will completely break away from the black household status. Luo Lin walked out of the bank, feeling a little relieved, and then went straight to the sky arena. It should be said that it is indeed the sky arena known as the holy place for fighters. When Luo Lin arrived at the registration office of the sky arena, the queue at the registration office was tens of meters long, and this was when there were several registration points in the sky arena. Welcome to the sky arena. Please fill in your personal information on the entry form. The lady at the registration office smiled politely and handed over an entry form. Luo Lin took the registration form and glanced at it. It is nothing more than some names, ages and contact information, as well as the most characteristic fighting experience in Sky Arena. Luo Lin filled it up quickly. Okay, sir, your number is 3025, please go inside and pay attention to the announcement calling your number. The young lady in the registration office took Luo Lin's registration form, smiled and made a please gesture to the aisle next to her. Walking in along the passage, you can see the exit not far away, and at the same time, the noisy voice gradually becomes louder. Walking out of the aisle, there is a huge stadium in front of you, and the surrounding seats are more than half full. There are players waiting for the game, and there are also spectators who are purely cheering. And in the center of the stadium, there is also a ring with 4 rows and 4 columns, totaling 16 blocks. Every group arena is full of heated competition, which looks extremely intense. But at a glance, they are basically pecking at each other, and even a master can't see it. It wasn't long before Luo Lin sat down. Contestant number 3025, please come to the K-ring. Luo Lin's number came out on the radio. So fast, Luo Lin got up and walked towards the ring. When he got to the ring, the referee and his opponent were already waiting. Please try to show your strength within 3 minutes. I will judge your level based on the strength you show. The referee looked at the two of them and said corporately. Is the first floor only 3 minutes? Luo Lin was slightly taken aback, but he didn't pay attention to these rules. Hey, kid, you're unlucky to meet me, sir. I'm a master who has reached the 50th floor. Luo Lin's opponent looked at Luo Lin arrogantly. There are very few bonuses in the first few dozen floors, so don't waste time. Luo Lin didn't care about his opponent. The moment the referee announced the start of the game, Luo Lin directly sent the master who claimed to have hit the 50th floor into the air. When the opponent hit the edge of the field, his face was still confused. Of course, Luo Lin would not play such a heavy hand on someone whose strength was far inferior to his. Seeing how far he flew, it was actually all a coincidence. Seeing the scene in front of him, the referee was also taken aback for a moment. Sorry, my authority can only let you go to the 50th floor. The referee said to Luo Lin, and handed over a note. It's saved a lot of effort. Luo Lin smiled, took the note, and walked to the nearby elevator. The 50th floor of the Sky Arena. Luo Lin was resting, and the waiting room didn't take long when his name came again on the radio. Mr. Luo Lin and Mr. Zuchi, please go to the stage C on the 56th floor. Originally, Luo Lin didn't pay much attention to the competition on the 50th floor, but when he heard his opponent, Luo Lin was slightly taken aback. Zuchi. Is that the Zuchi? Chapter 60. Luo Lin looked at the small figure opposite. It turned out to be Zuchi. But he remembered that Zuchi's opponent on the 50th floor shouldn't be Kahlua. Or is it that Gon and Kahlua have already gone up? After Zuchi lost to Kahlua on the 50th floor, he has not been able to go up. It should be the latter, right? Although Luo Lin didn't pay much attention to the time. But in more than a month, Gon and Kahlua should have come to the Sky Arena long ago. Of course, Luo Lin didn't have either, so he was just going to find two little radish heads. Everyone has been waiting for a long time. The next contestants are Luo Lin, who has reached the 50th floor for the first time, and Zuchi, who has several good records on the 50th floor. Come on, everyone, please press the button on your hand to place a bet. The referee on the field did not announce the start, but the commentator mobilized the emotions of the audience. Players winning and losing gambling is also one of the pillar industries of Sky Arena. Finally, the betting results of the audience of both sides were displayed on the big screen. 1.006, 2.554 inches. But judging from the betting results, the audience in this game obviously had more confidence in themselves than Luo Lin. Although Luo Lin Ming was obviously older, it wasn't just one or two Zuchi who defeated adults in the competition. Obviously more people are optimistic about Zuchi than Luo Lin, who has no record. Luo Lin didn't pay much attention to this. He was just wondering if he could make a bet. If you can count the bonus, you should be able to win more at the 200th floor. The game is about to start, please get ready, both players. The betting is done and the referee finally gets to work. Ha! Zuchi yelled lightly and assumed a martial arts stance. The foundation is good, it's Xinyuan Liu's shelf. Luo Lin looked at Zuchi's posture and made an evaluation in his heart. Although he and Biscuit started directly from actual combat and had no pretensions, they still have a lot of understanding of Xinyuan flow. The game begins. The referee shouted. Luo Lin walked towards Zuchi slowly. The familiar scene in front of him made Zuchi's pupils faint and he thought of something. Don't be distracted during the battle. Luo Lin suddenly appeared next to Zuchi, reminded him and punched him at the same time. Although Luo Lin reminded, Zuchi had no time to dodge at that speed, so he could only raise his arms to parry. Boom! Zuchi flew upside down until he almost fell off the edge of the ring before regaining his stability. The degree of completion of the wrapping is not bad. Luo Lin felt the strength of the fist just now and commented in his heart. As for not killing the opponent in seconds, according to seniority, this is also his nephew, so Luo Lin still saved some face for him. At this time, Zuchi obviously also felt the gap between Luo Lin and him. It's the same as back then. Zuchi thought of the match between himself and Kahlua, and a flash of fighting spirit flashed in his eyes. Drink. With a loud shout, Zuchi regained his posture and rushed towards Luo Lin. But Luo Lin is not going to fight a mentoring battle either. Although Zuchi's foundation is good, it is obviously at the time of laying the foundation. The game in the Sky Arena is enough for him. In an instant, Luo Lin's fist moves landed on Zuchi. Although there were no injuries, it also made Zuchi unable to get up for a while. The referee next to him also quickly judged the score. After the game ended quickly, Luo Lin obtained permission from the referee to go to the 60th floor. As for Zuchi, it also dropped to the 40th floor. This is the rule of Sky Arena. Based on 10 floors, the winner goes up and the loser goes down. After the game, Luo Lin didn't intend to ask Zuchi to recognize this nephew. Sky Arena can only play 2 games a day. Luo Lin has run out of matches today. I haven't reached the 100th floor yet, and I don't have an exclusive room. Naturally, I'm planning to leave the Sky Arena and find a place to live. Although the time in the world of Hunter is in the 90s, the technology is relatively advanced. It is very easy to book a hotel suite with a mobile phone. Although the money is not too much, but there are still 5 million precepts, Luo Lin naturally does not intend to treat himself badly. Just when Luo Lin was about to leave Sky Arena, Luo Lin, a surprised voice sounded. Luo Lin froze for a moment, turned around and saw 2 little radish heads walking towards him together. Luo Lin didn't expect that he didn't take the initiative to look for it, but he also met 2 little radish heads. But since they met, Luo Lin smiled and greeted the 2 of them. Gon, Kahlua, are you here? You really took Kahlua out of the house. Yeah, Gon nodded with a strong smile. As for Kahlua on the side, he tilted his head. Although it is true, why does it sound so uncomfortable? You guys are coming to Sky Arena too, Kahlua said. Well, come here to make some easy money. Luo Lin replied with a smile. Hearing this, both Gon and Kahlua were stunned. But think of Luo Lin's strength. There seems to be no problem with this statement. The 2 little radish heads obviously had other things to do, so they exchanged contact information with Luo Lin and left. Are you going to get in touch with Nian? Luo Lin squinted his eyes as he watched the 2 leave. The 2 of them obviously came back specially from high-level officials. As for the purpose, it is naturally Zuchi who just fought against Luo Lin. It's a pity that the 2 of them couldn't get the real Nen from Yunji Yu this time. The danger of Nen dooms lawful Nen to be cautious when teaching new Nen. Even as the examiner of the secret test, his original duty was to teach Gon, the hunter Nen. But Yungu's temperament will still carefully consider the 2 before deciding to impart their abilities. Of course, it has nothing to do with Luo Lin who has already learned Nen, or even proficient in Nen. After taking a few glances at the 2, Luo Lin turned and left the Sky Arena to head to the hotel he booked. It's just that Luo Lin didn't notice that when he left the Sky Arena, a pair of narrow eyes in the noisy crowd saw him in surprise. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.